Hey y'all, hi. The day is finally here. I'm going to be reviewing everything that I've tried from the wonderful indie brand Phytosurgence, which, if you're not abreast of what's going on right now, or at least as I film this, it'll probably have been last week when you're watching this, on the Phytosurgence Instagram between the brand and Ted from Buffalo Beauty Boy regarding the potential new blush shade, which I hope they'll be calling Lizzie After Rome, then get abreast of it right quick. I'll link the relevant accounts down below so you can click through and follow that delightful little exchange. I hope they don't get demonetized for saying get abreast. It's just one of those little internet things that's brought me joy lately, and it's directly related to Phytosurgence, the brand that I'm reviewing today. This is mostly a self-sponsored review in that it started because I used my channel's budget for a review to buy some things to review, but I ended up buying some more products with my own money, with my own personal budget. I'll get into that when we get into the video. And then there are also a couple of pieces of makeup that the owner of Phytosurgence added into my package when he realized that it was me who had placed the order and that I would likely be applying and discussing the products on YouTube. So actually there's a mix. It's things that I bought myself with my own money, things that the channel bought for me to review, and a couple of pieces of what are essentially PR. But this is unsponsored. I'm unaffiliated with Phytosurgence. And I decided to do this review because so many of you over the years have told me that I would love Phytosurgence, and so many of you have requested this video. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. I'm glad you're here. My name is Hannah. I love makeup and I really enjoy reviewing it, but I try not to encourage overspending on makeup. So when I do a full comprehensive review like this one, I'm trying to provide as much information and as detailed information as possible to help you maybe decide against a product, because I feel like the more detailed and specific information you have about a beauty product, the more realistic you can be about whether it's actually going to be worth your money and whether you're actually going to get use out of it. And then if you do decide to get it, if you do decide it is going to be worth your money and worth adding to your collection, the more likely you are to be correct about that. So that's my goal with this review. If you enjoy this while you're watching and you're new or you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And now let's get into the meat of the video. We have the full backlighting going on here, the full glare. It's the time of year. In this house, sometimes we get all this light from the back, and it actually doesn't do me very many favors in terms of being able to represent at this distance and with this lens the way things look. I took some really good close-up footage of myself applying this makeup today with the zoom lens and with different lighting. So it's that like scarily realistic footage where you can see the texture of everything. You can see the texture on my skin. Way less flattering than this, but you know, I did it for you. And I also have close-up overhead footage with really good juicy swatches of all of the products that I'm going to be discussing. But for the face-to-face part of the video, this is what we've got going on. Not only are we seriously backlit, but it's also complete chaos back there. And this is not even the half of it. It's not even the quarter of it. It's not even the 12th of it. It's been like this outside, just outside of the frame for a long time. And it's gotten so like this that it's just encroached on the frame because I'm packing to move right now. And unfortunately, a couple of things got accidentally packed. One of the Skin Spark blushes and both of the brushes actually got accidentally packed, but I will still discuss them, still review them. And I know that I have overhead footage of the blush that's missing because I took that footage kind of a long time ago. This video has been in the works for a long time. So when I sat down to plan this video, I was a little worried that it would become incredibly long and unwieldy because there are so many products. When you add them all together, I have a lot of individual pieces of makeup from Phytosurgence. And I was also a little worried that it would just be like me gushing, inarticulately gushing, because I have been so blown away by this brand. So in order to corral my thoughts, rally, and really try to dig into the nuances of the products and not just how they perform in isolation, but how they have integrated themselves into my life, like what I'm actually using, kind of irrespective of how I feel about the formulas, in order to make sure that I could get at that and not go overboard and not go on too long, I settled on a ranking style for this video. So I ranked them in order from, in broad strokes, my favorite to my least favorite. I don't dislike any of the products, but I do have clear favorites, and there are definitely a couple that I haven't gotten as much use out of. So I'm hoping that by going through and telling you why each product earned its position in the ranking, I will be able to stay on track and complete this video within all of our lifetimes, basically. But because I cannot contain myself, cannot keep a lid on it, I am going to start with the thing that I love the most, and that is Skin Spark Cream Blushes from Phytosurgence. Y'all, I kind of don't even know where to start. I need to rally my thoughts and focus myself. Let's start with the texture. Let us start with the texture. It's so easy, I feel, to communicate the texture because I feel like it's a thing we all know, okay? A piece of that kind of chocolate that has so much cocoa butter in it that it feels like it's almost at the point of melting all the time, but it's not actually melted. So it's not melted enough that if you turned it over, it would fall out. It would not fall out. It's not liquidy in that way. It's not even soft or honey-like in that way. It's definitely set, kind of like a mousse, but I feel like moussey is a word we use a lot, and I feel like moussey implies to me that there's some air whipped into it. And the thing about these is that they feel really dense, packed, and super pigmented, which I'll get to in a second, but I need to focus on texture first because it's the thing that I lost my mind over. I'm very texture sensitive over here. And I don't think I have ever touched a blush, and maybe not even a makeup product, that satisfied my love of texture as much as these have. Because it is moussey, but it doesn't feel like it has air whipped into it, in that it doesn't feel like if you press down, it's gonna like collapse or press together the molecules of the product. It's both moussey and dense. And getting back to the discussion of chocolate that is that way, really, really packed with cocoa butter, but not whipped, not like puffed up and whipped up like an actual mousse, but dense, solid, and melty, but not melted. As soon as you touch it, it's melting, right? It's like the heat of your finger is what makes the difference between it being solid and it being a cream. I'll roll the overhead footage because I feel like you can actually really see what I'm talking about in the close-up footage. When I touch it with my finger and then pull my finger away, you can see how lovely and creamy it is on my finger. And you can get a sense, I feel like even visually, of that quality that this product has of being right on the edge of the melting point. In the listing for the product on the website, which I now see is called Skin Spark Blush Balm, that's what they're calling it. I wouldn't call it a balm because it doesn't have anything resembling or adjacent to that kind of Vaseline-y quality. And they actually don't have either that sort of shininess or glossy slickness. One of the things I like about them is that they really become one with the skin. And if you want them to be, they're not mattifying, but I feel like if you want them to be matte and you don't use any illuminating products with them, you can keep them really on the skin-like or even the matte side of things. And to me, balm really speaks of something quite glossy and slippy. But they're called the Skin Spark Blush Balms, and in the listing it says a moussey cream that resembles a soft chocolate truffle in texture. So I can see that I'm not the only one to have come up with chocolate as the analog. And I'm not surprised because, again, it's familiar, it's so exciting, and it's the perfect way to describe the way that this product feels. It has been months now that I've been testing these blushes. Like, I've had them for a long time, and I still sometimes when I'm falling asleep at night and I'm trying to sort of distract myself, soothe myself, think about what I love in life, think about what I'm grateful for, and think about what I'm excited about the next day, I will think about waking up the next morning and getting to put this blush on. Like I'll think about how it's going to feel to open the little lid and stick my finger in it and then apply it to my cheeks and blend it out. That is how much of a hold they have on me. I have already started talking about this a little bit, but I'll fully now go into the way it feels when they apply to the cheeks, the way that they blend out. They are very, very, very pigmented. And this is another thing that I personally really like in a makeup product. I like for my products to be pigmented because then I feel like I can do whatever I want with them. I can really control them and I don't have to fight with them. The only risk in this case is going overboard. If you apply too much right out of the gate, then you have to work to scale back. But as soon as I figured out how pigmented they were, that ceased to be an issue because I just go a little bit at a time. And almost across the board, my experience with this product is, it's actually the experience I had today and what you'll see me doing in the close-up footage of myself applying one of these blushes. My experience is I dip my finger in once. I'm amazed at how much pigment and wonderful chocolatey cream has come off onto my finger. And I know that a little goes a long way. So I distribute that little bit between my two cheeks and then I go in with a brush, blend it out, and it blends in seconds perfectly. And then I have the cheek that I love, which is like really quite bright, strong pigment, but very natural looking, evenly distributed, usually it kind of naturally blends out to be a little bit denser and brighter on the high points of the cheeks, diffused all around. It's become one with my cheeks. It somehow really truly looks like my skin, but gorgeously blushy. It doesn't blend away at all. And unusual for me, I almost never feel like I want to go back in with another bit. I usually just do dab, dab, blend, and then we're done. And I like a quite blushy cheek. I reined it in a little bit today, or maybe it just looks like I did because I'm so bright and blown out in the footage. But hopefully you can see in the close-up, more realistic footage how bright of a cheek I got with just a little bit of product, and yet how natural and wearable. I almost wish that it didn't apply itself so seamlessly and quickly because I loved the feeling of blending it out so much. I just enjoy the process of it so much that I wish that it lasted longer. And sometimes I end up putting on a ton of blush just because I want to keep applying it. The one risk of the Skin Spark Blush Balm. I hope it's clear at this point why this product is first in the ranking, because it's first in the ranking in my heart of my life. Like, I like it more than any of my other blushes, and I like it more than a lot of my other stuff. Meaning that when I'm trying to cheer myself up, I think about it. The one thing that I would like to see different from what's currently offered in the Skin Spark Blush Balm world is some desaturated colors. And I know that they're already working on it. I think they've already gotten this feedback. And I don't think it's a bad thing that the colors are so rich and bright. It's actually great because I feel like this is a very versatile range of colors and it's a great starting point from which to then develop 1,000 more colors with Jason and Tom. All right, thanks. I particularly appreciate that in the listing for the current colors of Skin Spark Blush Balm, which is only the tip of the iceberg, right, Jason and Tom? It specifies in the listing that some of the colors have a low white base, which means that they're more pigment rich and they don't have that milkiness that can sometimes blend out to look ashy on deeper skin tones. The listing specifically says a low white base means that the shades appear more translucent than opaque. Of course, I think that that's fantastic. Obviously that there's diversity in the range in terms of the way that they're formulated, and also that they've made that information really clearly available and specified on the website which shades they are and what the different shades might lend themselves to. I, however, am always looking for the opposite. I'm always looking for blushes that have a very, very high white base percentage. And when I mixed my own blush recently with the Salt New York Skin Tint Pro colors and shade adjusters, I ended up cutting the blush with so much of the white lip and cheek adjuster and the white complexion adjuster to get it to be my ideal blush. Super desaturated and very, very neutral. I have surprised myself by loving every single of the 4 colors that I've tried in the Skin Spark Blush Balm. Even Fervor, which is one of the ones Jason and Tom added into my package. So I didn't pick this color. When I first placed the order with my budget for self-sponsored review, I was intending to just have one of each of the makeup products. So I ordered one blush, one of the eyeshadow thingies, and one of the Spectral Shine highlighters. When I placed that order, I ordered Fume, which is, I think, the most neutral of all of these blushes, and it's the one that I've used the most, and it's the one that I accidentally packed. So you'll see it in the overhead footage, but I don't have it on hand. And then they included Fervor, which is like an almost violet berry, and it's one of the ones with a low white base. So it appears more translucent than opaque, and it's really, really brightly pigmented. And I was like, I'm not gonna like that because I don't tend to like blushes that fit that definition. It's like the opposite of what I'm usually looking for. But I effing love it. I love it. It's just all of them somehow look natural. And I have a feeling that even though looking at these 9 swatches of the 9 blushes that are currently available, even though there isn't actually one of them that jumps out and is like, I'm the color you've been waiting for your whole life, I have a feeling that I would actually love all 9 of them and enjoy wearing all 9 of them, because there's something about the formula and the way that it works with the skin that seems to magically make any color work, because I would have thought that this would be like the one in last place, literally the one least likely to work for me. But there are days when I reach for it instead of any of the other 3 that I have. This is just to say, in saying that, I hope to see some like old gum colors from Phytosurgence in this formula. I'm not trying to knock the current shade range because I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it is the way it is for a good reason. All of the blushes are gorgeous and all of them are super versatile. I think more versatile than one might initially think, especially knowing how pigmented they are. I just selfishly want my dream color in my dream formula. What I want is like beige, like a neutral, just a pale neutral beige, almost a greenish beige is what I want. And needless to say, I am following the future career of the Skin Spark Blush Balm with great interest. Whew, okay, do you think I can just leave it there and move on? I love it so much that I feel like I haven't said enough. I'll briefly mention the brush that goes along with this product. It's the fluffier of the 2 brushes. I'm actually not ranking the brushes because I just feel like they are great at what they do, but because they're tools and it's different from all of the others, which are like products that you apply to the skin, it's hard to fit them in the ranking. But they're great at what they do. And I actually really like Sky Fluff for applying these products. It's like my first choice brush to apply the Skin Spark since I have it, but I've applied them with all sorts of brushes. They work beautifully with any brush, and I'm sure that they work beautifully with a sponge too, or with fingers in a pinch. I really like applying any makeup product with a brush. That's my preference, so I almost always use a brush. Sky Fluff, the brush, it's like a real tongue twister moment over here, y'all. Sky Fluff, the brush that works best with the Skin Spark blushes. Did that come out right? I think the thing that's great about it is that it has that nice combination of fluffiness and density. I feel like it's fluffy enough to cover a large surface area and give me that natural diffused blend, but it's dense enough that I feel like I have a lot of control when I'm using it. And I feel like that's actually important because I want to have control over how much I pick up if I dip the brush directly into the pan, which I often do because that's just how I roll. It's good that the brush has like a dense front and I can see how much has been picked up on the bristles when I dip it in. And it's actually also good that the bristles are white because then I can see how much I've picked up and I can look at the brush and know whether it's going to be a disaster or not when I go in with it on my face. Because if you you have to be careful. Like, look at this. It looks like I've barely used any of it, but that is not the case. I have used and used and used it. It's just that I learned my lesson early on and I only ever use a tiny bit at a time. Okay, let's move on to my surprise second favorite of the products that I've tried from Phytosurgence. It's a surprise because it's a skincare product and it's not the thing that I usually hear people talking about on YouTube when they talk about Phytosurgence. But this has really rocked my boat. No, that's a bad thing, right? It's rocked my world and floated my boat. It's the Verdant FORCEFIELD from Phytosurgence, and it's a cream moisturizer. It was difficult to decide whether this should be second or third. The products in the second and third spots in the ranking were really like vying to be number 2, and this ultimately won out over the product that's in spot number 3, because I use it so much, because it's skincare. So this is actually probably the thing that I've used the most of all of the products that I've been testing from Phytosurgence, because I use it every day, and most days I use it both morning and night. I really, really like it. I learned in reading about this too that Phytosurgence actually started as a skincare brand. Skincare was what they first developed and launched. And then they just branched out into makeup and did so spectacularly well because they formulated these incredible, unique products. It's one of the things that's most impressive. All of them are like nothing I've ever seen on the market, and I love that. The makeup products have really taken off, especially in the beauty community, but the skincare is really good. Don't sleep on it, as they say. Don't sleep on it. The thing that makes it most amazing to me is that it has that combination of being not too heavy feeling, not too emollient, but creating a barrier. So I do really like super heavy, thick creams that I can put on last thing at night, and they have like a strong presence on the skin. They feel like they don't sink in, but rather they just create a layer that pushes everything else in the skin and locks in the moisture. I do like heavy creams like that, but they obviously have their place, right? They can't be really worn under makeup. They have to be the last thing that you apply because you can't really layer other things on top of them. But most other moisturizers, most that don't fit that bill for me, because my skin is so dry, they tend to just soak in right away and disappear, especially things that have sort of a gel cream texture instead of some kind of really heavy or oily texture. It's hard to find a moisturizer that has that wonderful, elegant, easy, wearable, mid to almost lightweight feel when you're rubbing it in, but then still is there. Feels like it has prepped the skin, feels like it has made the skin a better version of itself rather than just sinking in to do its work on the inside. And I learned when, again, reading about this for this video, that a lot of people have gotten into Verdant FORCEFIELD basically as a primer, or at the very least as a skin prep step, specifically before the application of makeup. I haven't really been thinking of it that way, but it totally makes sense. And I think that I have probably been subconsciously using it that way a lot, even though I haven't put it together until right now. I feel like this never happens to me, but I actually feel like the descriptions of these products on the website are kind of doing a better job than I can at describing the products. The Phytosurgence website describes this as a mid-weight gel lotion that feels almost elastic or mochi-like on the skin, dries down and sinks into the skin after application. Yeah, rubbing it into the back of my hand right now, it leaves behind a moisturized, softened skin that isn't tacky, that isn't greasy, but it also doesn't have that texture that I feel like my skin often has when I put really great skincare onto it, which is that it's been dampened by the product and then the product has soaked in and left behind almost like a surface that like a brush would skip across. You know what I mean? Like a moist, forgive me, a moist surface. Obviously, the back of my hand is a little bit moist because the product's on. It just also feels really, really soft and like something that products would glide over rather than skipping over. Have I done it justice? I don't know. All I can say is that I'm gonna buy it again when I run out. I bought this with my own money actually, because what happened was I placed the initial small order. The products came, I started using the Skin Spark blushes, and I did something that I don't usually do, especially given that I try not to spend too much money on makeup and that I review makeup on YouTube and a lot of makeup comes across my desk. I immediately was like, I need another color. I'm gonna get more of this. And so I placed a second order, but I had already spent my whole budget, like my channel's budget for self-sponsored review, so I just bought it with my own money. And I was so impressed by the products that I had gotten in the first small package that I decided to try some of the other products. I decided to spend my own money on the skincare, a couple of skincare products, because I was like, I bet they're amazing. As I said, the Verdant FORCEFIELD beat out the third place ranked product in this ranking by an absolute hair, a sliver of a hair, because it is so good. It's the Flash Fluorescence from Phytosurgence, which is the eyeshadow. And this is another one. I ordered just one when I initially placed my order, and Jason and Tom included a second one, which actually ended up being my favorite of all the ones I've tried. So I'm really glad that they did that. So it wasn't actually just the Skin Spark blush, the excitement with the Skin Spark blush formula that made me want to place a second order and spend my own money. It was also this, because I had a remarkable experience learning how this product works. And I'll tell you about it now. I'm going to do what I did with the Skin Sparks and go texture, application, color range. So the texture of these is, again, like nothing that I've seen. They're pots of eyeshadow, and you would think to look at them that they're cream shadows. This looks like it's going to be like a Tom Ford Cream and Powder or Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize situation. But then you touch them and they are hard. They're just extremely set. And when you start touching it, it feels like wax. It feels like set candle wax, kind of. So when I first got my first package from Phytosurgence and I opened it up and I started playing with this product, I was so excited because I'd seen all of the beautiful swatches online and all of the beautiful eye looks. I opened it up and I started touching it and I was like, it feels dried out. I was like, what is this? My brush isn't gonna be able to pick this up. It just feels like it's not makeup, kind of how I felt initially. I was extremely skeptical. I took a brush, a small Rephr blending brush, the ones that are made for hooded eyes. I love them so much. I started swirling it around in the product, and then I picked it up out of the product and I started applying it to my eyes. And I was doing it as if what I assumed was true, which is that barely any product was going to pick up on the brush, and it wasn't going to be very pigmented, and it was just going to be this like wash of color that I was going to have to build and build and build. So I was like, this is weird. And I took the brush and I was like, swirl, 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 blah, 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 blah. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my goodness, where did all that pigment come from? Because it's so thin. It feels so thin when you touch it and it comes off on your finger. Like, this literally feels like I'm touching the surface of a candle. And now it physically feels like nothing has come off on my finger. Like, almost nothing has come off. It's just absolutely weightless and so thin. And then it's all there. There's like as much pigment as there would be if I had stuck my finger into a cream shadow like Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize. It's just that because it's so thin and sort of dry, it's really, really easy to control on the eyes, as long as you don't do what I did and go in as if there's nothing on your brush when there actually is, in fact, plenty of pigment on your brush. Plenty of weightless, thin pigment with a beautiful grungy finish. And once again, I should have known, because the description on the website is incredibly accurate. A firm, stiff cream that picks up incredibly easy and thin, gives you enough playtime on the skin before it dries down to a budge-proof finish. That's the other thing that's really spectacular about this product. It doesn't feel like it's setting or gonna set because it doesn't feel liquidy or creamy to begin with, but it does change. It does set when it's on the eyes, and it's incredibly sturdy. So I'll give you a close-up of the process that I went through creating this eye look today with Defiant Dahlia. This is what I almost always do. I used my finger just to get a good layer of coverage over the center of my eyelid and to kind of give myself a frame of reference for the shape that I was going to create on my eyes, because I find it easier to control that shape if I'm building it up with my finger. And then once that shape was established, I went in with my Rephr brushes, which are amazing with this product. They pick up the product so incredibly beautifully. In general, those Rephr brushes, the eye brushes, are really, really great for picking up anything because the bristles really grab onto product and they give me so much control, and they work particularly well with these products, or rather, these products I feel work particularly well with them. It just feels like the pinnacle of harmony of tool and product when I'm using them together. So I went in with a little blending brush and swirled it around in the pan, and then I showed you a close-up of how much product is on the brush. Even though it feels so thin, so waxy, almost feels like it doesn't exist, and because you're not digging into the surface of a cream when you swirl your brush in it, it feels like it's not picking up on the brush. It's like this weird magic trick. Then you look at the brush and every single bristle is coated thickly in this beautiful, super lightweight substance that I feel like I can barely call a cream because it doesn't feel like a cream to me at any stage. It just feels like a layer, or like an eyeshadow, you know? An eyeshadow that just has this really slick, special consistency. So then I went in on my lids and built on and around that shape I had established with my fingers to get the eye look that I wanted. I built it up a little bit extra in the outer corner to deepen the outer corner a tiny bit, but this is such a versatile shade. It creates the structure that I need because of my hooded eyes, but it's not so dark that it looks like too much when it's all over the lids. And in my experience, pretty much every single shade that they have formulated is like that. But we'll get to the shades in a second. I hope you can see that, like the Skin Spark blush balms, it blends itself kind of. It's just because it's dry and it doesn't have the stickiness and thickness of a cream, it's so easy to blend. It's easy to not go overboard, and I'm always surprised at what a seamless, easy, and usually what a symmetrical look I get when I'm using these products, because sometimes it can be hard to get a really even and symmetrical eye look when you're just using one product all over the lid on both eyes. I used pencil brushes to blend it out under the lids. I also did something that I find myself doing with this product a lot. I used it in my waterline instead of an eyeliner. And I don't know if you're supposed to do that. I don't know if you're authorized to do that by Phytosurgence, but because of the texture, it sticks. It stays on the waterline. It enhances the look and it doesn't irritate my eyes. So I've just been doing it. I feel like it's funny. I actually feel like this product does have the consistency that you find in some eyeliners. Products that are designed to be used on the waterline and the lash line, be blendable and then set down. It's kind of like a product, it's kind of like a tub full of set eyeliner, blendable eye kajal. And it feels very skincare-y, like it feels like it has the waxes in it that make certain really great skincare products or base products very, very elegant, cosmetically elegant, and then very, very beautiful to look at. Let's move on to talking about the colors and the different finishes, because I think that there are 3 finishes. There is the original formula, which has a satin pearl finish. Then there's the In Bloom collection that has like chunkier micas in it, I think, and a more glittery finish. Defiant Dahlia, which is the one that I am wearing today and the one that I demonstrated today, it's from the In Bloom collection. When I filmed the overhead footage for this will tell you how long ago it was. The Weathered Woods collection hadn't been released yet. I think it was actually like the day before or something. I filmed that footage and then they released Weathered Woods like the next day. So I only had 2 at that time, and they're one from each of the original 2 collections. So Wild Oak is from the first launch, which is just the satin pearl finish, not as glittery. And then Defiant Dahlia is the more glittery one from the In Bloom collection. As soon as the Weathered Woods collection launched, I bought one. I had been anxiously awaiting the launch. Again, I don't usually exhibit this kind of behavior where I'm like, I have one and I already have another one and now I want to get a third one and I'm going to buy it as soon as it launches. I'm not like that with makeup. You guys know, if you watch me, you know that I'm not usually like that. There's something about Phytosurgence that's really gotten it amongst me. So as soon as Weathered Woods launched, and I was excited about this collection because it's specifically super grungy. So in terms of the spectrum between pearl and glitter, this is in the middle. So it's more shiny and has more texture than the original satin pearl, but there aren't those big chunks of mica that you see in the In Bloom collection. I love mica and glitter, but I appreciate the balance in this formula. And it's the colors that really got me. There are 4 colors, and at a glance, it's like there's a reddish one, there's a golden one, there's sort of like a bluish one, and there's a greenish one. But each one of the colors has been blended and cut with so much like gray and brown, sort of like gunmetal, silver, that kind of grungy metallic that's not silver or gold. Every single one of these colors has been mixed so completely with so much of that they don't actually really look colorful, especially not in person. They're just these 4 really stunning, super grungy neutrals, each one of which has kind of a ghost of a color associated with it. So I got Oxidized Olive, which is the one that is supposed to be associated with green. Like some of its best friends are greens, you know? But it really does look just like a really special grungy gray. It looks less green in person, I'll say, than I was expecting it to based on the imagery. But I love that. I'm happy with that. And then the Phytosurgence team sent along Chilled Cherry and Magnetic Maple. And all three of them are wonderful. But I've kind of surprised myself by liking Chilled Cherry the best and using it the most. It interests me that I wasn't considering buying it, and Defiant Dahlia, of the 4 in Bloom shadows, this is the one that I thought I would probably like the best, but I didn't consider buying it because based on the imagery, or more just the descriptions or the imagery of these colors compared to the other ones, I thought that they were going to be very warm toned and that there would be almost like that red or even orange shift to them. So many eyeshadows in my experience that seem like they might be like a nice neutral or grungy red leaning or even sort of mauve leaning shadow, they either go extremely orange on me or extremely mauve. And I think that I was expecting that both of them would do one or the other of those things. Maybe I was more worried about them going super mauve than super orange. But I was definitely thinking that Chilled Cherry would be really purpley mauve on me. And I was thinking that about Defiant Dahlia too. I was looking for brown, basically. Brown is what I would have wanted. Well, I feel like Defiant Dahlia is more brown. Even though on my eyes today, you can see the nuance, you know what I mean? You can see the color in it. It's really just that like stunning bronze that is alive with undertones of other colors, but without leaning orange and without leaning too mauve. And Chilled Cherry, it's kind of the same. It's not exactly the same color. Defiant Dahlia is the darker, more orangey brown one there, and Chilled Cherry is just, it has less orange in it, but they do similar things. I just love wearing it. And when I went on a trip to the East Coast recently for a couple of weeks, Joe and I went out there to find the house that we ended up renting. It was the only eyeshadow that I took, Chilled Cherry. I end up picking it because it has that depth of grunge, whereas Magnetic Maple, it's beautiful and it's really neutral, but it's quite bright and light. So we get more drama with Chilled Cherry, more sculpting. Oxidized Olive is probably in a vacuum my favorite one, you know, because it's just so grungy and so neutral and so kind of gritty, but it's more cool toned. So it clashes a little bit more with my complexion and it just looks a little bit more dramatic. Chilled Cherry of the Weathered Woods collection, although I haven't tried Pewtered Pine, which actually now that I'm looking at the swatches, maybe it would be my favorite. No, but Chilled Cherry, again, it has that slight warmth but without getting orange at all and without getting too far into the realm of purple. Whereas I think Pewtered Pine is probably a little bit more of that blue or cool toned purple. They're all stunning. I'm just trying to enlighten you if you've been looking at the website and you've been wondering what the experience is like in person, if you're trying to decide which one to get. If you have my taste and you just want to get one, Defiant Dahlia I think is my favorite of all of them. But if you're wanting to choose one from Weathered Woods and you haven't really been considering Chilled Cherry because you usually don't go for the pinks or the reds or the one that's the most mauve, you know, just know that for me, it's the one that reads as the most neutral. But of all of the ones I've tried, the one that reads the most neutral is, I think, Defiant Dahlia. It's a little bit warmer, but without getting too warm. I can't believe that I have 5 of these. Just 3 or 4 months ago, I had none, and now I have 5. And again, that's not the kind of behavior that I usually exhibit. And again, this is a combination of me buying them for review with my channel budget, me buying them myself, and me having 1 or 2 added in as media samples for review. So it's not like I went out and bought 5 at once. The thing that's shocking me is that I'm excited that I have 5 and I love all 5. And I don't usually feel that way. I usually feel like I want to whittle it. What I was trying to say is that in my life, because of my work here on YouTube, it does frequently happen that I end up with a single, like multiple colors of a single product, which I wouldn't have necessarily chosen to buy myself. You know, I'll have like 5 lipsticks, 5 different colors of the same lipstick. And even if I really like the formula, what I almost always do is to just choose one and to give the rest away. And in this case, sorry friends and family, I'm keeping them all. Okay, let us move on. I feel like I'm failing at my attempt to not sit here talking about Phytosurgence literally for the rest of all of our lives. but I'm gonna try. Even though I like all of the products, I feel like here comes a little bit of a divide between the 3 that I'm freaking out about because I can't believe how incredible they are, and 2 that I think are really good at doing what they want to do, but aren't necessarily my style. And actually, it was kind of hard to rank them because they do both have things to recommend them, and they flip-flopped a little bit in terms of 4th and 5th place. But also know that if somebody took away all of my Phytosurgence makeup and I were to place an order to replace the things that I love the most, that order would have in it a couple of Skin Spark blushes, a bottle of Verdant FORCEFIELD, and a couple of Flash Fluorescence eyeshadows. And that would probably be it. So we're now crossing over into talking about things that I appreciate, but that I might not necessarily be crushed and need to replace right away if I lost them. This is why it's good that I'm doing a ranking. I feel like it's helping me to be articulate in a different way about my feelings. The Spectral Shine was actually in last place for a long time as I was preparing for this video, because it has taken me a long time to understand what it is, why it is the way it is, and what it does. We've had a little bit of a rocky start to our relationship. I was so excited to try this product because it has rave reviews, and I feel like I'll go in the same order. I'll do texture, application, and then colors. I feel like it needs to be said right up front that this product has a cult following, maybe more than any of the products from Phytosurgence, at least as far as I can tell online. So there's a hype around it, and I've seen so many people whose makeup preferences I share and whose opinions about makeup I really trust loving on this product, like holy grail status. I just was not expecting the texture, because you look at the pans and they're so inviting looking and shiny. And I feel like when I looked at them in the imagery, and even when I saw people applying these products online, and when I saw the way that their cheeks looked after they applied the product, I expected them to feel the way that the blushes feel. I expected them to be kind of melty. I even expected that based on the description on the website. The description of the texture says a dry to touch cream to powder formula. It does not feel like an actual cream, and it will not melt. Okay, this is actually very accurate, and maybe I just didn't read closely enough before, or maybe it's been updated. Once again, the description on the website is actually very accurate. It says a dry to touch cream to powder formula. It does not feel like an actual cream, and it will not melt or become creamy with the warmth of your finger. It will remain dry, but creates a creamy look on the skin, picks up and applies in incredibly thin layers. Maybe this has been updated since they updated the formula, and I think I got these in December, and I think that I got them after it had been reformulated, but I feel like I haven't read this description before. And maybe if I had read it, or maybe it was up and I just didn't read it, or maybe I did read it and I don't remember. But I feel like if I had internalized, if I had at some point seen and internalized this description, which clearly says it does not feel like an actual cream, it will not melt or become creamy with the warmth of your finger, it will remain dry. If I had read that before, I wouldn't have been so surprised when these arrived and I started playing with them. It feels like a piece of beeswax. It feels like I can do this because I know that I'm not going to damage it, because that's how hard it is. I was using the analogy of wax, like a wax candle, to describe the way that the flash fluorescences feel, because that's what they feel like when you start touching them. But then when you lift up your finger and look at it, you can really see the product on your finger, as you saw when I held up my finger. And when you swirl the brush in it and you hold the brush up, you can see that a lot of product was picked up on the brush. In this case, it's not even like that, right? I can touch it with my finger, and when I look at my finger, there is some on there, but it's just a really dry, very, very dry situation. It picks up in incredibly thin layers, absolutely. Thinner layers than the Flash Fluorescence. This is a drier, harder, and more set product, even than the eyeshadow product. Along similar lines, but just if I flicked the surface of the Flash Fluorescence like that, it wouldn't make a tapping noise. It would be a soft touch because it's a softer product. I actually thought when I first opened it that it had dried out. I was like, there's something wrong with this. And again, maybe if I had read this description more closely or watched a review like the one that I'm giving you right now, I would have been prepared, but I wasn't. So I saw it and I was like, oh no, something's wrong. And then began the long process of trial and error, first messing with it, being absolutely sure that there was something wrong, then doing a bunch of reading, investigating, clicking around on Instagram, watching videos of people applying it, watching other people describe it. And I slowly came around to the realization that this is actually how it's supposed to be and that there wasn't anything wrong. And then I was like, but why do people like it? Because it's so thin and it's so hard to feel and see on the brush that I just felt like it wasn't doing anything. And I also felt like it was hard to imagine making it work with other cheek products. So I was sitting at my vanity, messing with it, rubbing my finger over this dry surface of the pan, then feeling like the thing that was coming off on my finger wasn't blendable. That's the thing that I ran into at the beginning when I was trying to figure out how this product works. So yeah, I can get product on my finger, but then I think you can even see by looking that it's not blendable because it's not a cream. It's not creamy. It really feels like it's made out of wax and that I've rubbed enough of it to pick some thin layers of wax up on my finger, but the layers are like building on each other and creating sort of an uneven surface. Can you see that? I'm a texture monger, right? One of the things that makes me so obsessed with the blushes is their incredibly creamy, blendable texture and how satisfying it is to touch them. And this to me is the opposite of that. I pick it up and I'm like, do I take this dry stuff and like rub it on my skin? Because it doesn't feel like it rubs in. It feels like it grabs when I try to rub it in, it's like rubbing a candle, like the wax of a candle onto my face. For days, I was like, I don't get it. I don't get why all of the Instagram models using this product look so beautiful and why Tom looks so beautiful in the footage when Jason's applying it to his cheeks. What am I missing? And then I was stressing out because I was like, I love this brand so much and I love the other products so much, but I'm going to have to sit down and review it and be like, I feel like it's a hoax. So I was disgruntled and I didn't know what to do. And then I did what I think is often the wisest course of action in life. I tried harder. I think that what I did was I was just like, let's pretend that I don't have all of this confusion and just try it in the way that I see people doing it and just see what happens. Like, don't try to make it blend like a cream. Don't try to fight it, but just do what they say on the website is what you're supposed to do with it and what I see people in the imagery doing with it, and just like take it at face value instead of expecting it to magically turn into the highlighter version of the Skin Spark blush balms, which is, I think, what I was like wanting it to be and fighting it to try to make it be that or like wish that it would be that. So I was like, what if I just do what they say, take the brush, swirl it, swirl it, swirl it, swirl it, swirl it, swirl it, swirl it all around, and then just start buffing it into my bare cheeks and then just sit back and assess the way that my bare cheeks look. And I did that, and I sat back and I assessed the way that my bare cheeks looked, and they looked beautiful, beautiful, just like Tom in the Instagram stories. And I was like, I was really feeling myself. Now, that evening when I sat down to play with makeup for makeup playtime, I didn't really have any other makeup on my face. So I wasn't trying to blend this product on top of a base layer of foundation. I wasn't trying to apply it as a glaze on top of powder blush or cream blush. I was just buffing it into my bare cheeks at the end of a long day. I might have had a little makeup on, but it had like really worn away or like become one with the skin, you know? So I was essentially buffing it with a soft brush into my bare cheeks. And that to me is the absolute ticket. If you are kind of a no foundation or very minimal base, like boy beat kind of person, and you just want your skin to be so beautiful right on the cheeks without going super overboard, without being glittery, and you really want the product to be textureless, totally weightless, like not creamy, not glossy, not glazy, not even like skincare-y, basically nothing, almost like you've applied a very final layer of skin that just happens to be incredibly beautiful, glowy skin, then this product is for you, because it does do that in a way that nothing else I've ever seen or tried does. And I'm glad that I kept working with it until I figured it out, until I kind of came around and I was like, oh, this is what this is for. And when you use it for that, it is really, really pretty. And I think that you will be able to see in the footage that I took today, when I applied this product to my pretty much bare cheeks. I mean, they probably had a little bit of green color corrector and a little bit of Monica blender cover blended out over them, but I was pretty much applying to very natural, if not totally bare skin. You can see how beautiful it looks. It's like pore refining, seamless looking, glowy without looking really wet or dewy. It's just that very, very refined skin-like glow that's definitely a step above satin, but not messy. Not messy in any way. And I kind of love it. I came around. Here's the thing though, because I love texture so much and because I have so much other makeup, I haven't really found myself reaching for these products again and again and being really excited to use them. Because in order to get that super weightless, very natural looking, really sturdy, like one with the skin, natural shiny glaze thing that they have going on, in order to get everything that you see and that I've described to you that these offer, you forfeit a satisfying texture. And I've kind of learned through this experience, the real spectrum of experience, from like the most satisfying texture for a cheek product that I can ever imagine to basically the least satisfying texture for a cheek product, especially given that I really love the effect, like what it delivers. I've learned how much the physical experience, like the tactile nature of makeup and even skincare products, but specifically makeup, I've learned how much the tactile nature of products means to me. And it really speaks to the fact that the application of makeup for, I think, many of us is not all about the end result. In fact, in some cases, maybe on many days, it's only a little bit about the end result for me. A lot of it is about the process and how it feels to be touching the products. And I also think that that addictive quality of makeup, of just touching it, is part of what drives overspending, overconsumption in the beauty community. Because I often ask myself this question, and I ask it of you: why would you buy something when you already have something that does the same job? Why would you buy a sparkly pink lip gloss when you already have a sparkly pink lip gloss? Or why would you buy a blue eyeshadow when you already have a blue eyeshadow? We are going on a bit of a tangent here, and I'll get back to Phytosurgence in a second, but I think that in many cases, the answer to that question, why would you do that, is because I want to touch it. Whatever the new one is, the one that you don't have. Because I want to dip my brush into it. Because I want to feel it. It's because you're buying it not because you want to wear blue eyeshadow or because you want to wear sparkly pink lip gloss. You're not buying it, you don't want it because of its use value. You just want it. You just want to touch it. And I appreciate that. I'm like that too. And I don't think in isolation, like on an isolated occasion, that there's a problem with that, because we do what sparks joy, right? I just think that you get yourself into trouble when you let that be the reason to buy makeup again and again, makeup after makeup after makeup after makeup. Then you end up with a collection that is absurdly disproportionate to the use value of makeup. And especially if you can't afford how much you're spending on it, it becomes a problem. So I've just been thinking, I've just been thinking about this a lot. This product that does something so beautiful and is so special and unique, but doesn't really make me want to use it, texturally, it's given me a touchstone, a way to think about makeup that I didn't really have before. So I just wanted to share that briefly before moving on. At the end of the day, the way I feel about Spectral Shine texturally and in terms of application and performance is that it's a very specific, distinct product, and it's either going to be for you or it's not. If you've been looking at this on the website and lusting after it and imagining that when you get it, you're going to open the pan and you're going to put your brush into a real like gel cream formula, something that looks set, but that has a balmy surface, kind of like the Danessa Myricks Dew Wet Balm. This looks a lot like that in the pan. That's something that if you drag your brush through, it'll leave lines behind. You know what I mean? Like it'll make marks on the surface of the pan. This, if you drag your brush across it, it doesn't leave a mark because it just feels like beeswax. So if you've been looking at this and imagining that you're going to get something balmy and emollient like that, then I'm here to tell you that that's not what this is. It's really, really different from other things on the market that look like this. But if you have never even realized that the thing that you've always wanted is makeup that doesn't really feel like makeup at any stage, like when you're touching it, when you're dipping your brush into it, when you're applying it to your face, it doesn't really feel like a substance, like a stuff, but really just adds the shine, almost like you're burnishing something, like burnishing wood or burnishing gold or silver. If all you want is to burnish your cheeks, this is the best analogy. I'm so glad I just thought of this. It's like you're waxing something, like you're waxing your car, you know, or waxing a wood floor. If all you want is to wax your cheeks and have them shine in that beautiful way, and you don't want to mess with something that's creamy and will like mix with stuff or will like get on stuff, get on you, you know, this is that. This is like the only brand that's making a thing like that, something with which to burnish your cheeks. And since I figured it out, I have gotten into it a little bit. I'm into burnishing my cheeks. I was really feeling myself today when I did it. I just find that there's a schism between my appreciation for that, for what it does, and the reality of the place that these products occupy in my life. The reality is just that I haven't really found myself using them very often. So it's been a real roller coaster. We'll see. I think we'll all have to follow the future career of the Spectral Shine Radiance Balms in my life with great interest to find out what's going to happen. And of course, I'll report back. A brief word about color. The thing that surprised me about color with these, I have the two lightest shades, Mirrored Moonlight and Fresh Fog. I like Mirrored Moonlight better. It's the second lightest shade and it has a little gold in it. And I usually don't like the way that gold highlighters look on my skin. This one to me it's my nude. It has enough beige in it that it blends into my skin. Fresh Fog is really bright white and I can see the white pigment kind of reflecting on my face. And it does give me that sort of unearthly, editorial kind of ghostly shine that's very beautiful. And I'm glad that they have it in the range because it's special in its own way. And if I were more cool toned and I were always looking for like a truly icy white glaze, then this would be the one. But for me, because the ultimate best use of this product is for a very, very natural luminosity on the cheeks, the one that suits my skin tone the most naturally is the one that has worked the best for me. Let us move on to the fifth product in my ranking, which is not fifth because it's bad, but rather because all of the other ones have just excited me more and I've used them more. This is another skincare product. It's the SUBMERGE Hydrating Facial Serum. And I bought this myself, again, in my second order from Phytosurgence. I put this in because my skin was feeling super dry at the time and I was just like, I need all the moisture I can get. And also because I was aware that I was going to be doing this review and I was like, might as well try two of the skincare products instead of just the one. And it's fantastic. Again, this is what they started out doing. This is a really lovely, simple serum. And I think it's pretty affordable. Yeah, it's like 16 Canadian dollars, which is gonna be under 15, maybe 14 US dollars, maybe even less. It's a watery kind of, it's like a jelly watery serum and it sinks right in, provides hydration, is lovely. It doesn't disappear completely on the skin, meaning if you have bare skin and you put it on, you can feel it. It's not like actual water, which some serums are really like. And so it's just lovely. It's perfectly balanced. It does its job. It's just that it hasn't reached out and made me use it the way that Verdant Force Field has. So I have a number of serums right now, and I also have a number of moisturizers. And this one tends to kind of get lost in the shuffle among all of my serums. I use it, but it's like I'm rotating it in with other serums that do a similar thing. Verdant Force Field, however, is like queen bee. I'm having to make myself use other things instead of it. So the fact that this is second in my ranking and this is fifth, it's just because of the way that each one of them has stacked up against all of my other skincare, basically. I've got to go because I'm like losing my voice over here. I hope that I've answered all of your questions about these products if you came here with questions. As is often the case, the footage is probably what's going to do it, right? The close-ups of me applying, especially because the website descriptions are so accurate, the close-ups of me applying the products and the overhead swatches are probably going to tell you more than I could tell you with words. And yet I sat here talking for almost 2 hours. Even if you didn't come here with questions, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you so much for watching it. And I hope that you are taking extra good care of yourself, because that's what'll make you the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.